Yes, welcome back to Bitcoin Season 2 Writers Room 2025
The
edition. I'm
first
Charlie.
episode, and Colin. The first
First,
episode of Writer's Room in 2025. It's a new year, new you. Same you, really.
it's
But
actually the same old me. Very little has changed except my outlook on the year. 2024, it was not super clear that we were in a bull market. 25, shit's flying up, yo. I mean, if you got shaken out by the last, month and a half of Bitcoin going all the way down to 90K, I think you're in the wrong business because this is Bitcoin where 90K is still the moon. I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that we are over $90,000. As we talk, it's at 98.2.
also
Colin,
really crazy that we didn't see a 20 to 30% correction like we've seen in prior markets. We might still see it.
we
We don't
might still.
know, but I mean, last cycle and the cycle before, Bitcoin's volatility was much greater to the downside. So maybe that's dampening a little bit with the ETFs and with just general. I mean, the market is much more liquid now than it has been in the past, right? So
Yeah. And well, we did just see like one of the biggest outflows, daily outflows from ETFs, from the Bitcoin ETFs ever. I think I
yes,
saw it was either yesterday or today was BlackRock's ETF outflow of 300 something million.
yeah, it was yesterday's. It was yesterday. We had this as one of the news items in today's newsletter, and it was something to the tune of, yeah, like you said, I think 325 million. Let me just double
Yeah.
check that because I have it in front of me here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 332 million, which was not quite double, but nearly double the prior record for daily outflow of 188 million in late December of last year. So
Yeah. And the irony is we're up on the day. So like Bitcoin started the day at like 96 and now we're 98 something, whatever. We're broadcasting this live, by the way. This is Colin and Charlie Writers Room, unstructured. We are the screenwriters for Bitcoin Season 2. We comment, we work in progress. You'll see some of the screenplays that we're writing for this coming era of Bitcoin, and we have some predictions.
we do have some predictions.
We put out
Today's
our yeah.
today's screenplay is all about what's coming down the pipe in 2025. We do not have a price prediction for you. We're not really
No,
in.
I'm not going to tell you the price. I don't know the price. I stopped trying to pick the price a long time ago because COVID happened and shit got very weird. And we're really narrowing our predictions to things we're actually good at, which is sectors such as Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin tech, and just trends in Bitcoin culture. And so we put a newsletter this morning, which you should definitely go like and subscribe to, newsletter.blockspacemedia.com, and we're going to talk through it. Colin and I each put out a few, and we have our fearless leader, founder of Blockspace, Will put out some, and we're just going to talk through. We will call back to a couple other prediction threads that have been put out for 2025, but you're going to get our fingers in the wind here. So any context or groundwork you want to lay first, Colin?
No, I don't think so. You covered most of it, so let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah. So I have here. Let's first of all let's just do Will's because he's not here, so we can
Yeah, and we'll speak for him.
yeah, we'll speak
And
for him.
this first one, a new pool emerges, taking 10% of Bitcoin's hash rate from Foundry and Ant Pool. Well, maybe not a new pool per se, could be an incumbent, but Foundry and Ant Pool seem poised to lose some hash rate this year as new miners enter the industry. Overall, Ant Pool reclaims its top spot. I think I generally agree with the second part of this. I don't know if we're going to see a new pool per se come up. I don't really see any, but that being said, you never know because Spider Pool was allegedly spun out of BTC.com pool. That was never reported, but industry scuttlebutt seems to suggest that.
I believe Spider Pool is also one of the ETH mining arms, either in close association with BTC.com or independent, and they came out of nowhere, and they now have what 4 to 7% of hash
Yeah,
rate.
pretty decent chunk. So it definitely could happen. And I saw on mempool.space the other day a pool that I had never seen before called White Pool.
Whitepool's been producing blocks for 2 years now, but
But are they just really small? Because I've never seen.
they will they will go on runs. You're
Okay.
getting easier. They'll go on runs where they'll like heat up and produce a bunch of blocks for a couple months and then calm down for a little bit.
Yeah,
But
that's
basically,
wild. Over the last week, they've had 1.56% of the network hash rate, which puts it in league with like Luxor, which is that's a lot of hash rate. It's a
yeah.
decent size chunk of exahashes. So, but maybe a dark horse could come out of the gate and take up 10%. I don't know if that will happen more so than what Will says at the end here, that Foundry loses some market share. Obviously, they just went through a round of layoffs. Their self-mining arm is being spun out. They're probably going to start jacking up pool fees for their miners, and that was kind of how Foundry amassed so much of its mining dominance in the first place, was they offered 0% fees to, institutional size miners, and that's just not sustainable, obviously, right? So I think that they'll probably become less competitive with their fees, and then that'll drive business maybe to some others. And there's also a question of, will Ampool continue to grow as Bitcoin mining potentially in China kind of makes a resurgence? That's one of the stories that I think is in the background of a lot of this stuff that I'd be curious to tune into going into this new year. Is China actually laxing some of these Bitcoin mining restrictions? We've heard rumors, but not totally confirmed. So
Yeah. So will Ocean be that dark horse 10% pool? Ocean's like at what, like an exahash? I forget. They're either 600
yeah,
petahash or like 1.2 exahash.
they like
But
don't
that
even
would,
register.
yeah, they don't even register yet. But it would be fun to see Ocean shake things up.
3.63 exahashes. We're rooting for them,
Whoa,
but we
actually,
just,
yeah.
but
That'd
we
only
just.
be a 250% increase from their current place for them to get 10%. So they could do it. Okay, let's next one. Will says numerous crypto companies go public, hurting Bitcoin mining equities appeal to investors. Um, yeah, I could. This is a reasonable, good prediction. I don't know if I agree with it. I think Bitcoin mining will eventually, it's got to differentiate itself amongst the pack of crypto equities. But I mean, we just saw Exodus Wallet go public in the US. They're the most used wallet in the world, and they went public. Their margins look pretty good. I'm not a equities analyst, but I can see this. I mean, as many more companies have dropped the MicroStrategy playbook in hopes of attracting crypto curious public money, we can see mining having to differentiate itself further. And then Will also has a prediction. Bitcoin dominance falls below 40%. Right now, yeah, shut up. Get out of here, Will. Get Bitcoin to 100% dominance.
Bitcoin to 100% dominance. Yeah, two notes on both of those. I think that there is a chance that new entrants to the public markets for crypto companies, there's a chance that it does impact Bitcoin mining stocks negatively. That being said, I think that these mining stocks will always trade like commodities producers, and especially like gold mining stocks or silver mining stocks. They are always going to rip when there is a bull cycle in these commodities. And I think the Bitcoin mining stocks will be the same. Unless investors start to become a little more sophisticated and evaluate these stocks based on current hash price and other operational considerations that have not really been on the forefront of a lot of equities analysis until the last year, I would say, at least within traditional equities analysis. I think industry native equities analysis, they've always kind of taken these things into account. And then for the last one, you know what? This did happen last cycle. I think it dropped to like 38%. So it could happen. I just don't know like what the meta this year is meme coins, right? And I don't know, is there going to actually be enough there for Bitcoin's dominance to really be shaken? Because those meme coins are highly, it's like a carousel, and you're constantly rotating in and out of them. And like this coins themselves are rarely as sticky as like DeFi apps or yield farming apps like we saw last go around. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I
I
could be a
see just
smooth brain take, but
yeah, I just see that unless we have weird events where you have meme coins uh like have these crazy $100 billion valuations, which is possible. Um I only see that really possible because of like weird blip events where like because it's a not very liquid shitcoin and it skyrockets, it can briefly cause the actual reading of Bitcoin dominance to be below 40. But I'm going to take the over on this one. I think Bitcoin is in a season of advancement where it's reclaiming and reestablishing a new baseline for overall crypto dominance. Okay, Colin, we're now in your predictions. You have 3 predictions. Take me through them.
Yeah, so the first one is easy. That's why I tried to like make it a little more nuanced with the 1.2 zeta hash cap. But so first prediction being Bitcoin's hash rate hits 1 zeta hash, which is 1,000 exahashes. We're at like 800 or so exahashes in 2025. I don't think it'll go beyond 1.2 zeta hashes or much further beyond that, just by nature of a number of things, not the least of which is mining economics. Even as Bitcoin continues to rip, difficulty will, or as Bitcoin's price continues to rip, difficulty will respond accordingly as more hash rate comes online. So there's this constant tug of war between Bitcoin mining operators as they try to find profitability amid ever rising difficulty and dwindling rewards. So, there's always going to be that kind of like hash price floor where or I should say like almost like a hash price ceiling, where, well, it's a floor and a ceiling, but you have to find the middle ground in that to be profitable. And operators are only going to be able to deploy so much hash rate given their power cost to actually continue to be profitable as difficulty rises. Now, all bets are off if we see a crazy transaction fee bull run. We could see that this year. I'm not sure. You'll have to, tap into the ordinal degen ecosystem to get them to start
That's hard
printing
to say, man.
BRC20s
It's not
again.
looking good right now. Bitcoin's seeing, some of its lowest transaction activity in years since the bear market of 2022, and we are sitting at $100,000 Bitcoin. I'm sitting here with my hands open, empty-handed, like asking, where is the activity on chain? We're at $100,000, and it's
All the
just
activity is happening off chain, bro.
yeah.
Everyone's using custodians.
What's going on here, guys? So
But yeah, so I think that's just a good reminder that we will probably not get too much in the ways of transaction fees this year unless there's some crazy ordinals bull market cycle. And the last thing here is that AI and HPC data center loads are going to continue to eat up market share for new capacity in the US and base load capacity. I think that Bitcoin miners in the US, there's still going to be chances for them to expand if they're smart, but it's going to be a lot harder over the next 5 years, decade or so to get these energy allotments because the US hasn't meaningfully grown its electrical generating capacity since the 2000s. I referenced this chart too much on this show, but to me, it's one of the most important charts to understand the predicament the US is in with regards to energy sovereignty. Like if you look at the 2000s, we started decommissioning coal, we started prioritizing solar and wind through these subsidies, and we started ramping up nat gas to replace the coal. We started decommissioning nuclear, and if you look at this chart, like the electricity generating capacity in the US just plateaus from 2000 up until now. So that's why Microsoft is, basically paying Constellation Energy to restart 3 Mile Island. All of these things are in conversation with each other. And I think that Bitcoin miners are going to have a much harder time in the US finding power over the next few years. So,
yeah, it's as Mark Zuckerberg says, it's an energy bottleneck for growth. So,
yep.
We'll see. It's funny because it's, I also made an AI prediction, but it's on the other side of the AI conversation, but I'll get there in a little bit. Here's my predictions. As your token ordinals guy, I have to be an ordinals bull and say ordinals flip ETH NFTs. The thesis is simple. NFTs, but on a bigger blockchain, the biggest blockchain. I can't help but think that, if you believe in this product market fit of JPEGs and identity and community and culture, the culture would naturally seek out the biggest platform, which is Bitcoin. And then you have this other dimension of like your JPEGs are just on ETH and Solana. They're just pointers to an off-chain server. Again, caveats to that. But on Bitcoin, they're actually on Bitcoin. So that's very interesting. You have constraint of like block space, so you can only make so many of them. You have the unit bias, where like people have been valuing these ETH NFTs and like they're like 2 or 3 ETH. Well, if you were to make the comparable 2 or 3 Bitcoin, now evaluation, you have like a unit bias pointing to a much higher US dollar volume. And then just look at some of the I don't know if you are as familiar with this, Colin, as I am, but if you look at like the marketplace Magic Eden, I believe uh, over half of their revenue last year came from Bitcoin trading assets.
Hmm.
And Bitcoin is a relatively recently added blockchain. They have been early. They were the earliest and most dominant on Solana. They've played second fiddle to OpenSea on ETH, but they've been still a pretty popular marketplace. And then they are the energy is behind them, and so like the money is clearly for or a lot of the user activity and volume is on Bitcoin. So I expect that if we get a Bitcoin run, I will predict ordinals flip ETH NFTs in both market cap and trading volume. So I have this other prediction, which I wanted to add something kind of a curveball here, which is that the indexer rollup models launch on Bitcoin, and at least one of them will be massively popular. What is this? Well, so similar to how ordinals is a system for tracking where Satoshis are and a scheme for posting data to Bitcoin, the ordinals themselves, we use a different client side, server side program, which we call an indexer, to track these. So they happen on Bitcoin. It's posted on Bitcoin, but we use a server much like a Lightning service provider to track what's happening with additional levels of consensus. So when I say indexer rollup models, people are developing similar types of things where you will mimic the types of expressive transactions on other blockchains, and you'll just post that data occasionally to Bitcoin. And then users will be able to interact with these indexers, these indexed additional rule set, and they will post back to Bitcoin. This really is kind of it's really, I would say, in the broader category of a rollup. Rollups might not typically be defined like this, but this is kind of a workaround rollup where without even like the real proofs of like enforcing like that the sequence of these transactions is correct. It's just kind of blind trust in the actual indexer. But honestly, that's what everybody else is doing too. So my prediction is that of one of these, Arch, OpNet, Track, and maybe others, I expect one of these just got to catch on because it's a fun kind of ingenious workaround that is a phenomenon which is kind of spun off outside of the it's been a little bit parallel to the ordinals narrative. So if you're interested in this, listener, I have an interview with Matt, a co-founder of Arch, and Chad, a co-founder of OpNet. So go back and listen to those if you're curious. Here's another one.
This one's interesting.
Yeah. We'll see more than one activation client released. If you don't know what an activation client is, listener, if everybody agrees that there's gonna be a soft fork, someone will write an activation client, usually Bitcoin Core, and various participants will run this activation client, which says we will activate the soft fork on a specific block height or date. There's been a way that it has been done with Taproot and kind of with Segwit. It wasn't called an activation client then, I don't think. But right now, the conversation is fluid, and there are multiple groups with the technical capabilities who are not Bitcoin Core. There are multiple groups of technical capabilities who are not necessarily Bitcoin Core themselves, who are making steps towards producing an activation client. One which is known is Moonsettler with the L-Enhance activation client. L-Enhance is still a little fluid itself with which particular suite of opcodes it will include. But then I would also anticipate there is probably a cat activation client proposed. And these things are not mutually exclusive. They could be complementary, but in reality, I would expect the grug brains of Bitcoin laser eyes to pit these two against each other and create a false dichotomy and uh, and cheer one on over the other. But I just think that I would not be surprised to see activation clients put out in the wild and it not just be one. So um, we talked about this at Op Next, if you remember, like a panel on activation. Not necessarily that we would expect multiple activation clients, but we talked about maybe what a failed activation would look like. There's been
Which has not happened.
Not as far as
That's
we
never
know.
happened, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting is like there are some perspectives, and I lately have been leaning towards this that I think it would be healthy to have a failed activation
Yep.
so that we could probably get over the fear of like putting stuff out there to try. It's a bit of that momentum for a protocol discussion, which is, if you're too afraid of failing or too afraid of messing up, it can be more of a hamstring than it is actual productive cautionary approach. So I don't know. This is a very deep, long topic, but I would not be. I think I'm the first person to say publicly that I think we're going to probably see more than one activation client. I'm willing to make a prediction. I could be wrong, but I just think that this is an interesting prediction to make. The last prediction is there will be a reactionary. This is my retail facing LLM and AI prediction, which is that there will be a reactionary push against AI content LLMs, particularly from the crypto ecosystem, because crypto people tend to be much more like familiar and on the beat of conversation of tech than like other people are. But like right now, what's hot is that everybody and their dog is trying to like talk to these AI agents online and get them to do certain things. And everybody's releasing their own AI agent or doing these chatbots integration and stuff. And the thing is, it's like it is already a cacophony of noise of stuff I just don't give a shit about. And I can anticipate this becoming so overwhelming that especially in very financially sensitive markets with financially sensitive participants, there will be a reactionary movement against the behavior and proliferation of a lot of these. And so I don't think that. So I want to be clear, this is not a bearish prediction against LLMs or AI content, but rather, as I said, I think somewhere else, it is not the science fiction writer who can predict the flying car. The more interesting science fiction is the person who can predict the flying car traffic jam. So this is me identifying where some of the rough edges are going to be. And if you thought shitcoin astroturfing was bad before, dude, get ready.
I feel like we've already seen some of that as well. Like there's been a lot of I just see like replies to our own tweets from Blockspace or Mining Pod, just all of these junk accounts pushing some garbage.
Yeah, but like you can tell, Colin, can tell that they're junk accounts, but very quickly, even like regular savvy internet users are going to find themselves totally overwhelmed with trying to figure out if they're talking to a person or not.
100%. Can we scroll back up to my last two?
Yeah.
because we'll start with the AI one, just to,
Yeah.
in context with the one that you just did. I think that we'll see something similar with regards to AI and HPC pivots with miners. I mean, this is probably a hot take for some people because I think this wave is going to continue in 2025, and I think it will. But I think this year will be the year that miners actually have to deliver on the promises they made in 2024 for making an AI pivot, and some of them won't be able to deliver the ways that their investors would hope. Some absolutely will, and they are going to reap fabulous rewards for it. But I think that the honeymoon could be over, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially if Bitcoin just gigamoons, that the market starts to reward pure play miners more than they would the AI and HPC ones. Um, and then the
Yeah,
second,
it's like you could actually say there's going to be the best pure play miners, which Gigamoon, and then the best like hybrid miners, which
mm,
Gigamoon, and
yeah,
then the ones which they're too lukewarm, the market will spit them out of their mouth in the biblical terms.
yeah, I think that's right. And then my second prediction was a strategic Bitcoin reserve doesn't go beyond the U.S. holding seized Bitcoin. This is actually what Trump said at Bitcoin 2024. He said he's
I
going
thought
to
that's like very
establish.
clear that he was
Yeah,
holding
for
Bitcoin.
sure.
Yeah.
But people, I guess it's just because of people glance headlines and they don't really dig into things. But the the narrative quickly became that he's going to establish one, and like no one really said by what means. I think they assumed that meant that the US would buy Bitcoin. But he played it very conservatively in that speech and basically just said, "We're going to start a strategic Bitcoin reserve by holding like I think it's like the US government has like between 200 and 250 or 60,000 Bitcoin that it holds from Silk Road seizures and other illicit dark web marketplace seizures." And he basically said that they're just going to hold that and not sell it. He's going to issue an executive order so that they can't the government officials can't sell that. So I think that that's probable. I don't think that the Cynthia Lummis style buy chunks of Bitcoin until the US has a million Bitcoin in a reserve is going to happen. I think it's going
Yeah,
to be
it's the
very
way.
hard for Congress to actually sign off on that, especially considering like there are so many other priorities. I mean, this is one thing Bitcoiners like have a hard time realizing that while Bitcoin is the center of the universe for them, it's really not for the majority of Americans. And there are a number of problems that Congress is going to want to tackle before they even address this.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I was reading or heard that like a BlackRock, which has the most successful ETF launch in the entire company, in the company's entire history, right? BlackRock itself has more employees who dislike Bitcoin and dislike this strategy than like it. It's something like 10% of BlackRock employees think it's good and like it, and 30% actively dislike it. The rest are neutral. So
Hmm.
like um I would say that would probably be a pretty good bellwether for other like high profile decision making bodies. Like
Yeah.
you're probably going to have more people who actively dislike having to talk about this than are like promoting it. And that just means that it's going to be hard to get anything like proactive done. So I think like yeah, making predictions which say that we don't make giant leaps forward towards a SBR and just say we're going to dig in our heels and hold on to the Bitcoin we have. Yeah, it seems like a much higher confidence bet. I don't know why uh, you would place your bets that we have in SBR. I'm actually surprised. Like sometimes I'll poke my head out and like look at like other Bitcoin narratives, like in like normal broader Bitcoin discourse. And I'm like, where the hell are these people getting like what delusion do these people live in? Like everyone's
I
talking about power law and stuff. I'm like, where the hell did this come from?
yeah, I think for the big strategic Bitcoin reserve, it comes from this idea of continued progress within Bitcoin adoption. It's like there's been this every cycle, there's been this steady, move. There's been like this steady step upward with regards to new financial tooling, new onboarding for different institutions, companies, most recently the Bitcoin ETF. So
Yeah.
it's like Bitcoiners have conditioned themselves to see each cycle as a progressive step forward into that adoption curve. And I think that like the nation state adoption is like the one thing that hasn't been truly tackled yet. I mean, we've had El Salvador that's also playing as a prequel to this,
Yeah.
but we've not had like a G7 nation, right? Like the US
You know what it
actually.
reminds? It reminds me of like 2013 to 15, where r slash Bitcoin was the news, which made it all the time was like, I saw a Bitcoin ATM at this one place, or this one company now lets you pay in Bitcoin on their website. And those were like the big milestone adoption moments, which is funny because I don't think those were really ever that impactful. And um, it was more just like headline generating comments. Here's a spicy prediction, which I'll throw out. The Kingdom of Bhutan will buy more Bitcoin than the United States, a country one millionth the GDP size will buy more Bitcoin than the largest economy in the world.
I could see that. Although I don't know if they need to buy it because they can just mine it.
Yeah.
What is
Well,
funny is what is funny is that El Salvador has already done that basically.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah. El Salvador will buy more Bitcoin than the United States. Yeah. Actually, make a lot more sense to like which micronation will buy more Bitcoin. That's a fun prediction because
right.
that's just one dude sitting on his golden toilet smashing by. Um, yeah. So that is our 10 predictions for 2025. We are gonna revisit this next year. Colin, you got any other thoughts on
Well,
forward-looking Bitcoin stuff?
we have one prediction that we didn't go over.
Which is?